Well, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome the next guest to the summit, the president and founder of Pacific Capital, best-selling author with 4 books, and founder of numerous companies. Welcome, Chad Willardson.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me on the show and participating in the summit. I'm excited.
Excited as well. I was talking to you just off air there, but when your resume came through, I was like, wow, this is like one of the most impressive ones I think I've seen. So, really, really looking forward to delving into it. And I guess a common question I've posed to a number of people on the summit is, how did it all start?
That's a great question. How did it start? It all started with, I grew up here in Southern California, and I went to college not really knowing what I wanted to study. I ended up landing on an economics degree, and I paused college after my first year and decided to submit an application to be a volunteer service missionary and being willing to go anywhere in the world. And I was assigned to go for 2 years to the Baltic states in the 1990s, which was Lithuania, Latvia, Belarus, and Estonia. And I had to learn Lithuanian language, and I had to talk to a lot of strangers in the Lithuanian and Russian languages. And it was crazy for a 19-year-old, that experience. And I think as I look back about what changed and put me on this path to just achievement, working with lots of different kinds of people, being willing to have an open learning mindset, I really look back to those 2 years as a very pivotal time in my life. So after that, I went back to college, finished college, and started working in the wealth management space at a very big Wall Street bank. And, kind of the rest is history. I became an entrepreneur in 2011 and left the big corporate world. And I've had so much fun doing it. So get all kinds of chances to meet people like you, Ross, and talk to audiences all around the country. It's awesome.
Fantastic. And now at Pacific Capital, and you've got 650 million in under
Yeah,
management?
so I'm currently investing 1.2 billion actually. So we've grown a lot.
Absolutely. And how long did that take? When did you set that company up?
I set the company up. I left Merrill Lynch on 11/11/11. So 2011, I built a good business at Merrill Lynch. I started with zero, and when I left, I had about $330 million of investments that I was managing, but I had to start all over. And starting all over was a big challenge. I went through a lot of growing pains. And so it's taken me about 12 years, 13 years to get to this point. But I feel like we're just scratching the surface. We have a great team. So,
Love that. Which probably, well, actually, no. How big is the team? I guess for one.
yeah,
Um,
the team, we've got 14 to 15 full-time team members right now, all experts in different areas like investment planning and tax and insurance, estate planning, things like that.
Well, and you said something really interesting there. You said you're just scratching the surface.
Just starting. Yeah, we're early.
I love that because there's going to be a lot of people listening going, just scratching the surface, 1.2 billion under management, which brings us nicely on because again, we talked briefly before about this, idea of abundance or the
Yeah,
mindset that you have. And that's something you're quite passionate about, isn't it?
it is. I feel like you're either going to be a learn-it-all or a know-it-all. And I'm a learn-it-all, and my team members are all learn-it-alls. I don't want to surround myself with people who think they know everything. What I found working with some very significant, successful, wealthy people is that they're actually typically humble, and they actually have a growth mindset, and they look for opportunities, and they're learners, they're givers. So abundant people are givers. They're not holding everything back. They're not feeling like, oh, if I give that away, then I'm going to be, having less for myself. The mindset of abundance and wealth is really that there's enough and more to go around. And just because you succeed doesn't mean I cannot succeed. It's not a zero-sum game. And I love that abundance mindset.
Yeah. Why do you think everybody doesn't have one?
It's a good question. I'm not sure, Ross, why people don't have one. I think we pick up ideas about money and wealth as children, observing our parents and family members and people close to us. We hear how people talk about money, And sometimes that gives us a perspective that sticks with us for 50, 60, 70 years, and it never changes. And so if you're in a household where people are saying, we can't afford that, that's too expensive, what do you think? Money grows on trees, you don't deserve that, then we're going to have a scarcity mindset from age 4, age 5, and it's sometimes very difficult to break that.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of our businesses are in healthcare, and we often, talk there as well. What your parents
Yep.
demonstrate has a
Yep.
really big influence, doesn't it? So if they're eating takeaway food all the time, not exercising, sitting on the couch or overweight, guess what? Their kids normally end up exactly the same. And
Yes.
what you're saying is the same for mindset as well, and with money mindset in particular.
Correct. Same attitude towards health and wealth. In fact, my last book, Ross, is called Fit for Wealth, and it's about 7 breakthrough strategies for elite health and abundant wealth. And I talk about the mindsets and disciplines and principles that you can use to create both much improved health and building and growing wealth. Because I do think they're very correlated. The clients that we work with, they typically have great discipline. They typically have goals. They're not perfect, but they approach their health and they approach their wealth with a very similar mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. If I look at all of the people, I guess I aspire to be like, very few of them, in fact, none of them are unhealthy.
Yeah.
Generally, if they're successful in one area of life, then it bleeds over into the others as well. But now you've teased that though, the 7 pillars, I think you called them. What are they?
You got to buy the book, Ross. I can't spill the
I'm going
beans
to stay.
here.
I'm
No,
going
no,
to stay
I'm just
afterwards.
kidding. I'm just kidding. I think that I believe that what's more important than those specific 7 is starting with a long-term outlook. Both health and wealth require discipline and patience. And what people get discouraged on is, maybe they invest some money and they don't quickly see an ROI. And so they're wondering if it was a bad investment, or they bail out, or they sell early. Same with health. If you eat healthy and exercise and go to the gym and work out, after one day, you don't notice anything. 2 days, you don't notice anything. 1 week, maybe you notice something, maybe not. The real results show themselves after consistency and discipline and patience. And you can't fake that. You can't buy that. It just has to happen. That's how you get those great results. Someone who is extremely fit in their 50s didn't get there on accident. Someone who's extremely wealthy in their 50s or 60s didn't get there on accident. They made conscious decisions to do good things without seeing the results right away. I think that's something that we often miss, is we want to see fast results. We're used to buying something online and it shows up the next day, or putting food in the microwave and it's hot and ready right away. But health and wealth both take time, and there's no way to cheat that process.
Yeah, we do live, don't we, in a very fast-paced consumer world where everybody wants everything yesterday. And I do think it's the same with business, with wealth. A lot of people get into whatever property business, and they think they're going to go on one course or have one coach or one mentor, and three
Right.
weeks later they're going to be a billionaire.
Right.
Uh, doesn't work out that way.
Absolutely.
Do you think, from all of the people that you've worked with over the years, do you think that innate lack of abundance mindset, for want of a better way of explaining it, do you think that can be changed, or do you think that is kind of who you are then?
100% can be changed. Yeah, 100%. I've seen it many times. I've seen people who came from nothing, who had more of a poverty mindset. And maybe it's one spark that just has to be lit. And it could be through a coach, it could be through a video they watch, it could be through a podcast or a book they read. But I really believe that that mindset can be sparked, created, and nurtured. It's not something that you have to be born with at all.
Love that. And is that one of the things that you do in your coaching as well? Because I think you've got a new program, Elevate.
Yes. Yeah. So I coach a group of growth focused entrepreneurs 2024 is going awesome. 2025 is going to be even better, but we really focus on the mindset, the skills, the leadership principles, how to really design your lifestyle, and forcing people to think bigger and more abundantly. Take what you think are your big goals, cross them out, and think a lot bigger, and then crowdsource the ideas, the support, the resources, and techniques to get you to actually make them a reality. So I absolutely believe it's possible. I also think your inner circle matters a lot. Who you hang out with, who you spend the most time with, how do they approach life? What do they think? Are they complainers or are they problem solvers? Like who you surround yourself with and what voices are you're letting into your head, like what you eat and what you consume into your mind will determine most of who you become.
Yeah, that the the fuel you put into your body, whether that's the news you consume, the people that you're talking to, or the food, makes a big difference.
Yeah, I recently told my son, well, I have 5 kids and they're all athletes. And my middle son, I said, because he loves sports cars, he loves Porsches and Ferraris. He's always, since he was little. And I said, could you see someone putting muddy water in a brand new Porsche or Ferrari? That's like eating the junk food, takeaway food. Like you're putting muddy water into a Ferrari. If you want to be a Ferrari or a Porsche, you got to put in the premium fuel. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, love that. And with the Elevate program, then you're talking about creating these big goals, but you also mentioned, it's about creating your lifestyle as well. So it's not all business; it's about
No.
freedom, it's
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Yes. I think most entrepreneurs get into being entrepreneurs for the freedom first. Like they're looking for less constraints, less limitations. Maybe they weren't a good student. They didn't want to be told what to do all the time. They didn't want to sit still in class for 8 hours a day at school. So it is really about freedom and lifestyle and opportunity. Like anyone who follows me on social media sees that we travel a lot as a family. We get out and enjoy life because you only get one shot here. So it's not just about money and business at all.
Yeah, I love that. Um, so with Pacific Capital, then, if we come back onto there,
Yeah.
you work with obviously a lot of big clients, a lot of high net worth individuals. What are your particular sort of philosophies that you drive through into your investing?
Yeah, the investment strategies are based on the client's goals first. So it's not investing just for an ROI. We really want to start first to see what you're looking to accomplish and what matters to you before we create any kind of investment strategy. I believe successful investing is goal focused and planning driven. And failed investing is market outlook focused and it's reactionary. It's looking at the news and saying, well, what's about to happen? Well, maybe we should do this. And it's prediction and forecasting. It's reacting to what's up and what's down, but it's not based on actual solid foundational goals. And so if someone were to come in and say, just make me as much money as you can, here's my $10 million account, that's not a good fit for us. We want to talk to someone and say, what is this money for? Like, is this something that's going to build a legacy for kids and grandkids, or is this for travel? Is it to start a new business? Like, what do you actually want the money to do for you? Because money in the end, it's just a tool. Money is not the end goal. You don't change when you get. We helped a client sell their business for $800 million, he and a partner. He's not a new person the day that 9-figure deposit hit his bank account. He was still the exact same person when I talked to him.
Yeah,
So money is not going to change who you are. It will magnify who you are, but it's not going to change who you fundamentally are as a person. So you've got to decide why do I even want money? What is it for? What will it allow me to do? And if you've got good intentions and abundant mindset and you want to really help and bless people and make an impact, then I think the sky is the limit.
I love that because I guess success is in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? Some people measure it in the number of zeros in the bank account. Some will be, you mentioned travel a couple of times, how many times you can get away with your family. Others, it might be how many days off a year, any number of things. In the program and the work that you've done, what's the most unusual description of success you've come across?
I think everyone defines it differently. I think the more purpose you put behind your goals, the more successful you'll be. As people have clearly defined purpose, they are just, they accelerate towards their goals much more so than someone who just has a financial goal. Like you could have a financial goal that says, I want to make $1 million a year, or I want to someday have $10 million in my bank account. But if there's no why behind it, you're less likely to be successful. So I think that I don't know of any odd, I guess, definitions of success that come to mind, but I do believe very strongly that when you have a purpose and a why, you're much more likely to achieve those financial goals because there's true meaning behind it. You know, for
Yeah.
example, I remember someone who said they wanted to create a real estate portfolio that would generate $10,000 a month in profits. And it was just seemed kind of, I always like to ask why, because sometimes people just throw out random numbers and they don't have a real reason behind it. So I said, why? Like, what is it really? Well, I just think that would be great to have 10,000 of automatic passive income coming through. And what would you do with it? What's that for? And when we boiled it down, it was like he had a special needs daughter, and that special needs daughter was never going to be able to generate any income in her life. And the real purpose was, if something happens to me and my wife, at least I have this real estate income that can take care of my daughter and all of her healthcare costs for the rest of her life. Now that is a clear goal. That's a purpose. That will motivate someone to go out and find real estate deals and make these acquisitions and be financially successful, because there's a real personal meaning behind the financial goal.
Yeah, that's super powerful, isn't it? That's going to get you out of bed on a cold, dark morning. Uh,
Exactly.
get
Exactly.
How do people find their why?
I think people need to think about what matters most to them. You need to think about the people in their life and the experiences that they really want, things that they care about. I hope that most people have that. If you retire in traditional retirement planning, if you retire from a job and you don't have anything to retire to, your health is going to decline very fast. And people, I've seen that people's identity is built in their job and their work, and suddenly they don't have a job, they don't have work, and their health deteriorates and their mind becomes forgetful. And it's because they only thought about what they're retiring from and not what they're retiring to. So whatever your next venture is, you've got to have some kind of a why or a purpose. So maybe people who are older and retiring, if they're looking towards that, they're thinking about, I'm going to do some charity work. I'm going to do some mentorship. I'm going to start a business with someone younger in my family, or I'm going to give back, or, you know, I'm going to do consulting in the same field so I can stay engaged with my connections. But you've got to have something. You cannot just play golf or watch the news every day, because you're going to decline very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. What is your why?
It's a great question. My why really is to create great experiences for my family, to make a difference for people who don't have financial means to pay for their basic meals and home support and things like that, and to really help lift and inspire people I meet to achieve bigger things than they ever thought were possible. Like that's what I really love to do, is to give people permission to go for bigger goals in their own life that really satisfy and make them happy.
So when you see someone have that sort of light bulb moment, you're kind of like, yes, that's why I get
Yeah.
out of bed
When
in the morning.
someone says, "Hey, because of our discussion, I decided to go for something big, and guess what happened? I got to tell you a story." Like, to me, that's exciting.
Yeah, I love that. Now, obviously, the summit, the lion's share of what we're talking about is about M&A, buying
Yep. Yep.
businesses. Have you got any sort of stories or tips or hints about how you approach that with Pacific Capital?
Yeah, it's
Presumably
good.
part of the strategy.
Yeah, good question. I actually just I'm trying to think if it was on LinkedIn. I think I just posted like a list of 10 things that every investor should look for when deciding to invest or buy a business or not. But one of them I think that's very important is the organization of the basically of the financial situation of the business. Oftentimes when I'm looking at a business, we'll see the personal finance and the business finance is really intertwined and it's not clear and clean. The founder uses the business like a piggy bank and is taking money out in and out, and it's just not, the records aren't kept very well. So I think something that's important is that they've got professional organization and structure around the way they approach money as a company. I really look for differentiation and scalability. What makes them unique and different, what other players are there in the market. I've invested in plenty of new companies, and most of them haven't turned into anything great, to be honest. One of them did, and yet the execution of the sale and the founder was just a disaster. So I also look for the track record of the leadership team. I invested in a company, lots of money back in, I think it was the early 2000s, and it was the first ever digital magazine company. So where you could swipe through on an iPad and it would like turn the pages and you could see everything right there. Very, very first one. And he wanted to sell the company for at least 30 million. And a couple friends and I were the biggest investors, and we looked at just the growth trajectory and it looked like it was going to be a much bigger company. But Apple came and gave us an offer for 40 or $45 million at the time. And all of us wanted to take the offer. But the founder and a couple of his executive team thought that it was too low. They said we should sell this company for $100 million. And what happened over the next 6 months is they basically drove the company into the ground. And all the investors, all of us lost all of our money, drove it into bankruptcy. And so I learned a great lesson. It was a great idea, great connections, incredible story, scalable, lots of growth. And yet in the end, the kind of the decision making and the flawed leadership of the team in place were the obstacle that caused us to lose all our money, when that could have been an incredible multi-million-dollar payday, and instead it turned into a bankruptcy.
Wow. What are your top three lessons from your career to date then? So one is there, it's like invest in the founders. They've got to be the right people.
Yeah.
What do you have another two to sort of add to that list?
Yeah. So number one, I would say the people are everything. Great ideas are wonderful, but without the right people, they're useless. So number one is people. Number two is financial discipline. If I were to see things inside a company where money was being squandered or wasted, or people were being overpaid in a startup that is not profitable, that shows me bad financial judgment. And number three, I really want to see the marketing and growth strategy. I want to see the energy and passion towards spreading whatever is being sold or offered. I think anyone who's seen that show Shark Tank can tell when a founder comes on stage and they just give their heart and soul. They've got a plan, they got a strategy, and they want to tell everybody about what they're offering, versus someone who's kind of like, they're in it for the money. They're not really passionate about what they're doing. They don't have that why behind what they're doing. So, and they don't have a marketing plan. It's like, how are you going to get this out there? And they're just kind of standing there dumbfounded without a good answer. So I really believe it's the people, it's the financial discipline, and it's the marketing and growth strategy and the passion that make a company very viable.
Love that. Yeah, thank you. Just to touch on one of those points then. So if you're looking at a business, so someone says, hey, do you want to invest in this? And you can see that, I think you gave a good example of it's like the owners are using it like a piggy bank.
Yeah.
There's no differentiation between the business's money and the founders.
Yeah.
Do you just strike that off the list, or would you educate them and try and help them to get where they are? Or do you just think, do you know what? I can't help that person.
I'd strike it off the list.
Yeah.
I don't have time to teach and babysit founders. I've made enough investment mistakes in my 20-something years that at this point, I'm not going to do that. So maybe the younger me would sit down and try to train this person to rethink differently about their business. But I think when you see who a founder is, you got to believe them and take them at face value. There are plenty of good investment opportunities out there. So I'm no longer putting money into things that I think I'm going to have to really like push and shove to get the founder in line.
Yeah. And you actually mentioned what my next question was going to be, which is, we're talking a lot about success at this summit, pushing
Yep.
forward. But of course, everyone has a past and everyone's made mistakes.
Sure.
So, what are some of your memorable ones, and how did it influence your growth afterwards?
Yeah, one of my that mistake I shared with investing and trusting that leadership team and not really almost insisting on that sale to Apple. That was a good learning lesson. One of my learning lessons is really been about hiring and firing. I do hire very slowly. We do a lot of assessments and interviews. We really want to test people before we bring them on board full time. One lesson about firing was I held on to a toxic employee way too long because they were really smart. And I think founders can get caught up in that when they're smaller. They build close relationships with people and they can't necessarily see objectively what's going on. And for me, that was a big lesson because the moment I finally let this person go, the energy in the office and on the team just shifted. It was like a massive rocket ship boost for everybody. And our business grew 84% the next year. And we were averaging, I think, 19 to 20% growth per year. But that year was 84%. It was like a liftoff. And yet I was stuck thinking, how are we going to replace this person? This person is so smart. They're so intellectual. They do their job really well. I know their personality is hard to get along with. And but the more they refuse to do work they're supposed to do, it was just like I had no choice. And people on the team said, Chad, if that person is still working here next week, like I'm not coming to work because it got that bad. And so I learned a lesson that was like, you know what? It's better for the person and it's better for your team when you just cut ties and make a change quicker rather than waiting and hoping that they'll change.
Yeah. People again, you meant that was your number one on the last one, wasn't it? People are so
Yes.
important.
Yep.
And it's interesting because we hear a lot of people saying, hire fast, fire faster, but you're like, no, we hire slow, we take our
We hire
time.
slow. Yep. We take our time for sure. I really want to make sure it's a fit. I don't want to persuade anyone to work for me. I
Mhm.
don't want to persuade them. I want to be very blunt and honest. Here's the stuff you're going to need to do. If you don't love this stuff, it's okay. I'm not going to be offended if you don't want to work here. But here, I'm going to lay it all out. And guess what? The more clear I am about laying out what this is, the more I attract the right people who really, really want that. So I think our job postings in general are really boring and they're not useful. They're just not helpful because they're so standard. They're very just traditional. They say all the similar things, but it doesn't really give people a clear picture of what the job looks like.
Yeah. What's next for Pacific Capital?
Oh, Pacific Capital is going to continue to grow. We'd love to get to $2 billion under management with less than 100 clients, and we're on our way there. I've got some great opportunities in the next couple months that we're flying to for some partners going through a major acquisition. I think it's this first transaction for them is 750 million pre-tax, and so that's going to be fun. And I think they'll head towards an IPO and become a public company in the next 3 to 5 years after that. So we're just going to continue to grow and serve our family office clients. Like I said, we work with entrepreneurs with at least $10 million to invest. And so no matter where they are in the world, if they've got an abundance mindset and they have financial resources and need help, like it's worth a conversation. So we're just going to keep growing.
Love it. And what's next for Chad?
Oh, for Chad, for me, my book 5 is coming out soon. It's coming out on May 7th, 2024. So that's my 5th book. I've got a goal to write 10 books in 10 years. So this will be number 5. This book is called Wealth Wired Differently: The 7 Advantages Entrepreneurs Miss Out On When Taking Financial Advice from Non-Entrepreneurs. So it's a very specific topic and title. And I'm speaking at a big event with a few thousand people on the launch week in May. So I'm very excited. We're going to throw a big launch party, and it's something I'm looking forward to.
Love that. I hope it goes really well. I'm definitely
Thank you.
gonna order your other 4 books after I jump off this.
Thank you.
Um, what was the first three, I guess?
Yeah. So the very first book is called Stress Free Money. The second book is Smart, Not Spoiled. That's about teaching kids and families about money and what they need to learn, how to teach it, activities for little kids, just really wanting to help families start having money conversations. The third book is Beyond the Money, and that's designing lifestyle and making business and investment decisions once you've already reached a high level of success. So Beyond the Money is more for higher level, higher income, higher net worth entrepreneurs. And then the fourth one is called Fit for Wealth, and that's about fitness and wealth and how those relate in your health, health and wealth together. So
Love that. And you mentioned as well about your coaching as well. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
yeah, so the elevated coaching program is really focused on goals, mindset, habits, discipline, and we have weekly calls with our clients that are basically like challenge accountability calls, following up with you on your goals, following up with what you're working on, what struggles you have, how can we support you. Then I lead the group Zoom sessions with entrepreneurs from all over the world. And then we do 2 in-person events here in Newport Beach, California. So I'm excited about it. I love the energy in the group is just on fire. So it only opens once a year, and we start January to December. So sometime in the fall, we'll open it back up for 2025 people to join. And I'm really excited where that's going. It's a lot of fun.
Fantastic. And if people have been listening and they want to find you, what's the best place to get you?
ChadWillardson.com and LinkedIn. Those are the 2 places where you can find me.
Brilliant. Chad, well, I've loved the conversation. Thank you very much for your time, and I shall let you carry on with your day. Take care.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Ross.
Bye.